I promise you that I pull aside to the side of the road for fire trucks, ambulances, and even police officers. I do that, and I think anybody who doesn't do that is kind of dim, quite frankly. And this is sort of what I wanted to talk about. Not exactly that, but the idea of having those services available to you and then treating them like they're important things. And I'm going to talk about that on a thing I've titled Your Own Government here on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Monday, the 25th of May of 2021. Happy to have you along, whether it's on Rumble, on YouTube, or on the podcast. Thank you for joining me today, and hopefully I'll give you something to think about that might be useful to you, particularly if you're completely against government, if you're more or less in the realm of anarchist. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let me get into my notes real quick so you can get an idea sort of where things are coming from. I start my notes by saying I'm no fan of big government. Anybody who knows me knows this very well. I am not a fan. Further, when authority is put in place, it should be at the lowest possible level. That's pretty obvious to me and something that we ought to do. That said, if you don't want your house to burn down, if you don't want people to whisk you away to the hospital in emergencies, if you want folks around to protect the vulnerable, like police officers, for example, you better be prepared to pay for them or be absorbed into an entity that has them in place. Now, sometimes, to be fair, you can find entities who will farm their services out to the local area knowing that they don't have them in place. I was watching a video from one of the people that I tend to, pay attention to a fair amount, not a ton, but enough, one or two videos a day, depending on what he's got out there, by the name of Tim Pool, who I know you know that I've talked about. Tim had a segment that he did about a young special needs man who bleeds out near what they referred to as the CHOP, which was the supposed autonomous zone in the Seattle area, and the fact that they were suing, I assume, the police officers for that. And I wanted to discuss that idea for just a second. But I have a question for you, and it's pretty simple, really. And it is, do you want government services or don't you? Municipalities will use government services, city services a lot of times, in order to make it so that they don't have to have their own. But in some sense, they are being paid for. Okay? And some part of that is being paid for by the city. So when the city starts to co-opt external areas, you shouldn't be surprised because they're already paying the emergency services and things for them a lot. So I live in the Little Rock area. By the way, that was the end of my notes. So we're free talking now. I live in the Little Rock area, and I knew somebody who lived in an area in North Little Rock, and that individual, if she called an ambulance or the fire department, they came out from, I think, North Little Rock, Sherwood, somewhere in her area, right? Point is, somewhere in her area, some city in her area was where the local police, local fire department, and so forth came from, were called from. And the point is that area didn't pay to have its own police department, didn't pay to have its own fire department, didn't pay to have its own ambulance service, right? It was all done by this local city, the nearby city. Now, of course, the thing is, the people who were using those services ended up paying for them, right? Whether through their health insurance, if they had it, for ambulance trips, or for whatever. But the point is, some of what they got, they paid for. But look, you should understand that city was actually the one that bore the brunt for the majority of those services being in existence. Now, I wanted to take just a second to talk about the young man who bled out near the CHOP. Whether it was in it, whether it was outside it, I don't care. Okay? I want to take a minute to talk about that. It's really sad that happened. There's just no way around that. And I sort of understand suing the city over that if the parents or whoever decided to do that. I really do, because the fact of the matter is the city allowed for that thing to be set up, allowed for it to exist, and the result was, among other things, people died. Now, I titled this Your Own Government, and I did that sort of with the idea of what the CHOP was about. Here was an entity that wanted to be its own government, and they learned something very hard that nobody really wants to learn the hard way. It's not easy to do things like emergency services if you're doing your own government. It's not easy. There's a lot of work involved in that. You typically have to contract with somebody because it's not easy, and it's not cheap, and it's cheaper to contract with somebody typically than it is to try and do it yourself. And so let's remember, let's say you have ambulances, let's say you have fire trucks, let's say you have police officers. You still have to have a dispatch facility. You still have to have a 911 dispatch. You still have to have a dispatch for routine calls, right? And so you've got to do all of this stuff in order to make that happen. So if you want your own government, my answer to you, I guess, would be go for it. But look, the thing that I would argue, the thing that I would say to you is, if you really choose to do that, that's fine and all, but you need to realize that there's a lot of expense involved there that a lot of people are not aware is being, they don't think about it. They get taxed. They get sales taxed, or property taxed, or personal property taxed, or trailer taxed, or whatever it happens to be for their particular area. They get taxed. And that taxation goes to pay for those services. But the thing is, those services are as ready to act in your behalf as they are for one simple reason. And that reason is that people have taken the time to figure out how to make them work. Okay? You go and you make your Chaz or your CHOP or whatever you want to call it. No ambulance? Well, whose fault is that? Ambulances don't want to come into your supposedly self-regulated area? Well, whose fault is that? They're looking at things and they're going, do I really want to risk my people's lives by sending them into this place, which is basically lawless, even though they claim to be an autonomous zone? It's basically lawless. Do I really want to send my people into those areas with the potential for them to be beat to death or shot? And they look at it and they go, no, I don't want to do that. Now, again, should the city have nipped that in the bud far quicker than they did? Probably. Yeah, that was inside city limits, and so the area in question was not controlled by some autonomous group. This ain't Swaziland, boys and girls. Look it up, in case you're wondering. This isn't some autonomous zone within the city of Seattle. You're not doing that, because you can't do that without all of the tools. You tell me that you want to do that and you're going to start setting the various things up to do that. I go, yeah, okay, I got it. You don't have them and you want to be on friendly terms with the place that you're near or in and make it so that they provide services for you. Okay, got that. Okay, but please don't tell me you're going to be some sort of an autonomous zone if you do not take the time and effort to build the necessary government entities for, at the very least, emergency services. Just don't do it. You want your own government? Okay, got it. I hear you. But what you need to know is that's not as simple as particularly a lot of 20 and 30-year-olds think it is. It's just not. Some of the stuff in government I wish wasn't there. Okay? Little Rock has what we refer to as the yard police, right? And I wish it wasn't there, right? These people who run around and tell you what to do with your yard. And I get that they're trying to make it so that neighborhoods are actually valuable and so forth. I don't care. Leave my neighborhood alone. Okay, it's that simple. Leave it alone. I'll mow my yard. I'll get my trees trimmed as I want them trimmed. I'll get my house taken care of as I'm able to get it taken care of. I don't need you to tell me to do that. That having been said, I'm still not in favor of having my own government, so I live with what the local city ordinances say. I have to live with it. All right, I need to wrap this up, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Again, this is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. Yes, my name is Kurt. Today is Monday, the 25th of May of 2021. That means tomorrow will be Tuesday, the 26th of May of 2021. Thank you for coming here on Rumble, on the podcast, or on YouTube. Again, Rumble is my preferred. If you came on YouTube, remember you can give me a like or you can give me a dislike if you really want to do it. You can comment there. You can also comment on Rumble, where you can give me a positive or negative Rumble, depending on what you think about my video. Today's subject has been your own government, and tomorrow we're going to talk about self-indulgence, which I think a lot of people don't really realize that they're being a lot of times self-indulgent, and what that sort of means in the grand scheme of things. Hope you're having a good day today. Today is Monday, the beginning of most people's work week. I'm just getting ready to start a new position myself. Yay, I'm a happy individual for that. Although it may, as I've said before, cause a little bit of interruption on my videos. Not so much not having them as it taking me a little longer to get them out. Hope things are going well for you, and hopefully we will see you again on tomorrow's Daily Summation. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Monday, May 24th of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.